Welcome, everyone. This is your host, RaShaun Warren, and you are watching CIME. Today, I got my friend Mike Woodhouse here. Let's go. Hello, everyone. This is RaShaun Warren, and today I got my friend Mike Woodhouse here. Michael Woodhouse. Well, how are you doing today?
Oh, you know how it is. Always busy, but I'm glad I was able to find time to chat with you.
Oh, no. So tell the people out there in TV land who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Lieutenant Colonel Mike Woodhouse, U.S. Army. I go by Woody. That's my call sign. So most of my friends and family call me. Been in the military for about little over 18 years since I graduated college, doing air defense artillery. And for the last couple of years, I've been working for the Space Development Agency, which is basically a new exciting thing I've been doing, building small satellites and launching satellites to support the warfighters in the U.S. Military. So that's me in a nutshell from a military perspective. Most importantly, though, I'm married to my beautiful wife, Stacy, of 14 years. Got two boys, Maddox and Owen, that are 8 and 9. But I think they act like they're teenagers in this day and age. So I try to spend most of my time with them when I have free time, but I'd be jumbling a lot of stuff, doing graphic design. We can get into that stuff later. Working on writing a book as we're talking now, and also on a couple nonprofits. So I think that's the undiagnosed ADHD in me that just needs to keep finding things to do. But happy to be here, and I'm sure that I haven't really summed up my entire life in 2 minutes, but we'll get into other things later on.
Man, it sounds like you got a lot going on. So with all that, the topic today we want to get after is like the strategy of life, man. So you're working with some satellites, you're a family man, you're a husband, you're an entrepreneur. Man, how are you managing that right now?
I don't know. I like to use the word controlled chaos. So it's the biggest thing that I've learned with all the stuff that I do, and this is a personal thing, is anything I'm doing, I want to see that there's some type of positive result. Not necessarily for me, it could be positive result for others, but I'm not comfortable just sitting around doing nothing. I mean, I get to those points, and trust me, I enjoy, watching a movie here and there, but if I'm doing something, I want to see like a tangible result. I'm very result oriented. But I can't do the same thing, right? I can't just do one thing all day long. I need to like have a shift in my mental focus, because then I kind of lose the energy. It's like if I change topics and change what I'm doing, then the energy comes back, because I'm looking at things from a different angle. So I try to do that whenever I feel getting sluggish or I'm not getting results in one thing I'm working on. I just try to shift and focus on something else. Go do something with the kids. Go work on my art craft and doing stuff like that. And also, I think the biggest thing is just not being too overcritical with myself.
Mhm.
A lot of men our age tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we always want to be perfect in everything we do. And I spent too many years trying to be perfect, and now I'm just trying to be good enough, right? And I have to establish what that threshold is for myself. Be good enough for yourself first. Give yourself a little bit of credit.
Oh yeah, I like the idea, and I like the thought that you just said as far as being perfect. So we go through life, we have all these things that we see, all these things that we want to do, and as we're heading down that continuum, sometimes we're like you're right, we put a bunch of pressure on ourselves to be perfect. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to you know, if you're a guy like you, a guy like me, we want to overachieve. And then when we don't overachieve, we kind of beat ourselves up a little bit. Is that kind of where you're heading with that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely, all the time. And, I always used to, especially since I was big into sports as a kid, you always hear like never quit, right? And I
Mhm.
totally agree with never quit. but there's also times where you can pause something, right? As long as you have the intent to finish things, you're not necessarily quitting it because you stop something, and maybe you have a goal and you're halfway to that goal, and you just got to tell yourself, I wasn't ready, and I got to go back, get my mind right, get my body right, whatever that goal is, and then come back to it. And I like to look at things that way, because I would put too much pressure on myself, like, physical pressure, mental pressure, like you have to do this now or you're a quitter. And now I've just told myself, maybe I was taking on something that I just wasn't ready for in life. I want to do this, but I'm going to pause that, put it to the side, get myself more mentally, physically prepared for whatever that is, and then come back to it. So it's almost a reframing of, I didn't quit. I just paused that temporarily to get more prepared and ready for what I wanted to do, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Hey, thanks for that breakdown. So, hey, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back, and I want to hear about some strategies that you kind of implemented to be less critical of yourself.
Welcome to Veritas. I'm your host, Adam Colazetti, and I'm here to guide you on a meditative adventure like no other. Join me and lose yourself in your imagination as we travel the outer reaches of the cosmos, quest for powerful talismans, and explore the inner realm of your subconscious. What might you find along the way? But be warned, fair traveler, this path is not for the faint of heart. On this path, of one thing I am certain, dragons be here. Are you ready?
Hello, we are the MD and Chef team. I'm nutritional chef Michael, joined by my beautiful wife, Dr. Isabel, medical doctor and suicide survivor.
Yes, I was dropped into the world of mental illness back in 2013, and by the grace of God, I survived suicide. But here's what I learned. We don't have a mental illness issue. That's the downstream event. We're focusing downstream. We should be focusing upstream on our brain health and all the things that we can be doing to support our brain health. Because you see, it's like mopping up the floor when the sink is overflowing instead of turning off the faucet. So come and join us on the MD and Chef Team show.
Come join us.
All right, and we're back. So, Mike, we talked a little bit about, trying to be perfect, or shooting to be perfect, putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. So tell us a little bit about strategies that you use to be less critical of yourself as you navigating through life.
It's really just a mental framework, right? Some people might call it meditation. There's different words for it, but I find myself, whenever I find myself in a stressful situation or I can feel the physical stress on me, I try to use that as almost like a timer to say, hey, timer's going off. Take a deep breath. Remember what you're doing. Remember, you're going to be okay. You've been through some really difficult stuff in life, like most everybody around us, right? And take a couple deep breaths and say, okay, where are we at? What are we doing? What are you so afraid of? And I kind of do that kind of self-coaching piece. And and it's become a pattern. It's become repetitive now. It's not something that I used to do or anybody taught me. It was just something recently that over the past few years, I've kind of taught myself. I think it was really driven from my oldest son, Maddox, because he's autism. He's got autism. He's on the spectrum, right? And so having a special needs child in your house that can act in your mind erratic and have episodes and do things that you might not characterize as normal behavior, that was a huge change to me. And I started to get a lot of anxiety that I never had experienced in the past. So when that stuff started happening, that's really when I had to do some self-reflection and figure out, hey, you can't lose your cool. That's not going to make the situation any better. You need to make sure that you're mentally where you need to be so you can be a good father and be understanding. So that's really where it started. I started to working with him, and then I just started to apply with everything else in life.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times we're dealing with things that's like outside of ourselves, right? So the things that we deal with internally or the pressures that we put on ourselves, sometimes we just really got to take an honest step back, we got to take a look at what's going on. Then we got to focus on our family. And as we focus on our family, that can kind of throw us behind too, because now we want everybody else to be good and we want ourselves to be good. So it kind of makes it hard for us to, I guess, be less critical of ourselves because we're depending on ourselves to push forward for us to be successful as well as our family. I guess I also can ask you, what inspired you to embrace your life's journey and share these lessons that you're sharing right now with people?
So I think the biggest thing that helped me embrace life journey and share these lessons was the mentorship piece that I ended up providing as a leader in the military, right? As a child, you kind of thought about leadership when you're on the court or, when you're playing sports. But being thrown into a situation when you're 21 years old and you got 40-year-olds looking up to you and looking for you for guidance, it makes you go, oh wow, I guess I'm an adult now, right? I'm an adult in the room and I need to know what I'm saying, So those experiences, and then actually having young 18-year-olds come up to you and ask for advice or reach back out to you to say, hey, thanks for this guidance. You've been a real mentor. You start to understand that life is about others, right? It's about how it's not about selfishness. It's not about how we feel. It's about how we can, spread joy, spread wisdom, spread our energy, positive energy to other people. And I attach myself to people that do that for me. You're one of them, Ray. That's why I think you and I got along so much in our career and in the past, because we would do that with each other. But that's what life's about, right? It's about telling people it's okay, listening to others, giving them guidance when they want it, when they need it. And it makes life a lot more exciting if you're in the moment and you understand that you're here for the people around you. Right. It's not about being trapped in a phone, being trapped in la la land. It's about the moments you're in, not the next moment coming up, not dwelling in the past, but the present. And really a lot of that came to me in my early days as an officer in the military.
Yeah. And you just brought up something interesting, right? So as a youngster, you have this in your mind, you think you're going to grow up. You're going to be leading people if you want to be a leader. You think you're going to be leading people that are way younger than you. You're going to teach them how to do all this high speed stuff. You're going to go over the lessons that you learned along the way. And then you end up like you are now. You're like mid-life-ish guy. But now you're developing people who are older than you, who are your age, and you're responsible for getting them down the path, even though they've been on this earth the same amount of time as you have or longer. How does that feel?
I get an imposter syndrome all the time. I'll tell you that. I'll be in rooms with some of the most senior officials or people much older than me with much more life experience, but it's not the same life experience. And that's what we got to let ourselves know is my life experience is my life. It's different than everybody else. And I'm sure there's some type of nuggets of information that I can share with other people that'll help them with some type of situation. But I look at everybody else that way too. Right? What in your life inspired you to be there? And what can I learn and grasp from you? I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts, just like yourself. And I do that because I want to learn what this ride has been like for other people and what I can learn from them, because we only get one life. Right. So I got my experience. I'm learning from it, but I'm never going to be able to live someone else's life. But if I can learn some lessons that they learned the hard way, just by being in the moment and taking a second to listen to what they're saying, you got to cherish that stuff.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
And I'm not immune to sitting on a phone and scrolling through reels and then going, oh my gosh, where'd the last hour go? And not even remember half the things I was looking at. It's designed that way. But then I just get mad at myself and like, stop falling in the trap. Go do something now that you just wasted that hour. But that's okay. But once again, that's okay. I don't beat myself up. I go, we're all human. And that's really why I wanted to talk to you today about, strategies. I've been thinking about strategy a lot. And I've been thinking about life, once I had, this really ambiguous home with a child that I didn't know what every day would be like, coming from a life that was very black and white, right? In sports, there's rules. This is the right, wrong. This is how you do it. You have a strategy, execute it, but you have a framework that's there. In the military, we got rules that we live and die by, right? Very, very disciplined, very regimented. And then I was thrust into this experience where like none of this stuff's regimented. I mean, that was probably the first time I dealt with that was when I first got married, right? And you have someone else living with you that just has a whole different way of seeing the world, and you're learning that stuff together, and things are different. You're feeling it out. But when you bring children into the mix, and it's not just a special needs kid, it's just children in general, you don't know what's going to be there day to day. And you have to be less critical and saying, this is the right way to be a father. This is the right way to act. There's lots of ways to act. We got to learn lessons. We just got to learn from each other. I'm learning a lot from my kids. I mean, they're growing up in a day and age that I can barely relate to compared to when I was a youngster. And it's just, having that time sitting at the table, talking to your children, talking to your family, and trying to learn together. And it reminds me of back when I was a young captain in the Army, and I sat down. I had some issues with one of my commanders. We weren't seeing eye to eye on stuff initially in the first year we worked together. When I went to leave that unit, he sat down and he goes, "You know what, Woody? This was the first time I've ever done this. And, I'm only human, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I made some mistakes. And I was glad to have that conversation, because it was a real experience where somebody's going, look, I got humility. I'm being humble. Like, we don't know what's right, especially as leaders. It's not like I go into my leadership handbook and go, what's the right decision here? We're going to make some flawed decisions, but our job is to make those decisions. But also, if you're humble and you talk to your subordinates and you talk to the folks that you're mentoring, like he did to me, you can have a lot more impact. So I might have rambled off a little bit with your question there, but
No. That's awesome, man, because you touched on two things I wanted to touch on with you anyway, right? One, that leader that you had, took a step back to be vulnerable and say, hey, you know what? I ain't never done this before. I want you to know I'm trying my best. And then that way it gives you a different perspective of how that individual was attacking things. And perspective is what we need, right? We do so many things without perspective. And when we don't have perspective, we make the wrong decision sometimes, or we look at an individual when we expected so much from them, when really, we probably could have aided them as well. So we kind of get a better understanding. But the one thing that you talked about, you said, hey, as far as I never did this before, when you talk about your child, right? You grow up, you get married, you have kids, and we have this vision of how we think things are going to be. And then each kid is different, right? Now we're being a father, we're traveling down a path, and we got other things we got to take into consideration. One, to take care of your kid the best you can take care of your kid, but two, be the best father that you can be. So when you think about that, hey, I'm trying to be the best father I can be. I didn't know I was going to have to deal with this, but that's my child. I love him. And I got to put my best foot forward, even though I never did it before. So how are you kind of attacking that, right? You got the military thing going on, and you're like, shoot, I got to put a lot of energy into this now because I want this individual to feel loved.
The biggest thing that I do is I don't spend as much time as I'd like with my children, but that's a vantage point that I have compared to, if I had a 24-hour window a day to spend with my kids. My father worked, 5 a.m. till 5 at night. He'd come home and eat dinner and go back into his business. He ran a business when I was a kid, right? And it was a restaurant open till midnight. So he'd be in there all the time at his business. And my mother worked, 7 a.m. till 5 every day as a dental hygienist. But I never felt like wasn't with my parents all the time, because when I was with my parents, they were present in the moment. And I think that's one of the biggest differences we have in the digital age is we're like, how much can we get done all at the same time, right? I'm multitasking. I'm reading an email while I'm waiting for the kids' school play. and I'm checking my finances. But at the end of the day, looking down at your phone, no matter how productive you're being, your kids are going to look at you and go, okay, that's what life's all about, right? Just be staring into electronics. And I'm not a person that goes, hey, you get 1 hour on your electronics a day. My kids love to play video games and stuff, but I make sure that there's a balance that I've established, right? I'm not going to tell anybody what their balance would be with their kids, but I just try to make sure that there's a balance of getting out, burning energy, having conversations, learning how things work, asking questions, and being present with them when I'm around them. And I think that makes the biggest difference. And that's the same thing with your children as it is with your profession, right? Whatever your profession is, you just need to make sure you're being present and understand the task at hand. Because I think sometimes we try to do too much at once, and then we're really not doing anything to our fullest potential.
Everything's a party. That's a party. That's a party. That's a party. And then like, hey, we didn't do that well. Of course, because you did try to do everything at once. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to start talking about some of your entrepreneurial efforts.
So here's what happens with the Rundown with Rubio. Every day I do these. I cover 5 different news stories. Everything happens for a reason. That's one. Number 2, there are winners and losers of life. These are the pillars of the Rubio method. Accept and embrace. You'll hear me say it all the time. Working hard is not enough, and confidence is the key. These are my morals of life, and these are also the pillars of the Rubio method.
Hi, Joel Maurer, founder of Dink Ninjas. Dink Ninjas was dreamed up and started right here in Austin, Texas, a dynamic pickleball community. We arm pickleballers with the paddles, apparel, and accessories to dink like a ninja. Dink Ninjas is dedicated to supporting mental health awareness and cancer research. Shop our full lineup at dinkninjas.com.
All right, so we're back. So Woody, not only are you like this high-speed satellite guy, this super successful military guy, but you got your own business going. You got some things you're doing on the side, or you might be doing out front. So tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, I guess I gotta go back a little bit because none of this stuff was happening, when we were first friends. This is all really a result of the pandemic period. So I was in the UK. I was in England working for NATO when COVID hit, and that place went on full lockdown. And I'm talking like you're not allowed out of your house more than 20 minutes a day for exercise, stay at home. And so when my entire day, as I mentioned before, I need to be doing a lot of stuff and seeing things that get done. And all of a sudden I was trapped in the house. Gyms shut down, parks shut down. I was getting a little bit stir crazy. So my wife bought me an iPad, and I started doing art and drawing and stuff. I hadn't been doing that since I was a kid. I always wanted to be an engineer and design sneakers because I was a big sneakerhead. So I'd always be drawing sneakers and doing art as a kid. So fast forward, here we are, 2020, and I start just learning how to use these different softwares, how to use the Apple Pencil and draw stuff. And I just started to make pictures and draw art because I could see something start and finish. And I was like, it was filling that void. And it was different from like reading books and stuff because when you're trapped in the house with the kids, it was tough to stay focused, but I could set down a pencil and pick it back up. So it was one of those more dynamic things. So I started drawing. And I started making social media drawings and funny stuff that had to do with air defense artillery, our branch in the military, and started publishing all that stuff on a website because there was a lot of negativity going around. People deployed, people talking about, leadership issues or finance issues or training issues. And I was like, I want to see more positive stuff. So I was just trying to lighten the energy and make some funny art that was reference to our niche capability in the military. And there was this big desire for people that wanted to have that art. They wanted stickers, they wanted patches of it, they wanted magnets and stuff. And I felt there was like a conflict of interest or a moral thing where I'm not going to, as an officer in the Army, be selling my art to soldiers. So at that point, I reached out to a bunch of retired vets, and I said, "Hey, I think that there's a demand here. I'd like to start a nonprofit and start making this art into tangible items, and we can sell it to the folks to wear and carry around with them, and we can take all that earnings and maybe produce a scholarship out of it." So we started what's called the Patriot Bros Association based on that artwork. And the goal was to hopefully raise $3,000 and be able to give that back to some soldiers the first year. Within the first 2 months of establishing this nonprofit, we had raised like $5,000. So the demand was even higher than expected. So I was drawing like crazy. We'd open up the gift shop every 6-7 weeks, and we were just feeling it out real grassroots style. And fast forward to now, it's been going for 4 years strong. We've awarded a dozen scholarships. We've given away over $20,000 in scholarships. We've donated a bunch of stuff back to the community, morale packages to soldiers deployed, awards for different classes for like the Patriot Top Gun course graduates. We design belt buckles and everything. And we do it all through our website. The board's grown to seven people now. We got retired 3-star general on the board now, helping expand and reach out to some of those older air defenders and get them following us. But that's the Patriot Bros. While I was doing all this, I was learning. You can see all these patches behind me over here. I was learning that there's this whole community of people that collect morale patches and stickers, and they call it the EDC community, everyday carry. So I like to just call it jewelry for men, right? Knives, beads, fidgets, wallets, you name it. And this community is out there, and it's not just a military community. And I was like, you know what? I like drawing, and I like to draw things that aren't just related to air defense. I could do the same thing I'm doing for this nonprofit, and I could do it for myself and for my family. So then I ended up starting my own LLC, Casa di Legno Design, which stands for House of Wood in Italian, or Woodhouse, play on the name, and started making patches and making all different types of things, doing logo design for businesses, doing logo designs for units in the military. Right now, I'm designing a logo that hopefully is going to be on the side of a Falcon 9 rocket that's going to be launched by SpaceX. So fingers crossed that I win that competition. And I also designed and drew the military patch that's the official patch of the Space Development Agency that I work for now. So all of this all just came out of like, I'm sitting here, I need something to do. Let me start drawing on a tablet. So now I'm running a graphic design studio and doing this thing on the side with Casa di Legno. I'm still doing the Patriot Bros with this great team and giving money back to soldiers. And that's really where all that came from.
Yeah, man, that's pretty awesome, right? Just you never know when your opportunity is going to pop up. You turn the pandemic into an opportunity for other people, but more importantly, that scholarship money that your organization was able to create or is creating and giving to the soldiers out there, I'm sure is tremendously beneficial. But, so you're going down the Army road. You got this thing going on like you just talked about with the Patriot Bros. Then boom, you make the choice. You're like, hey, I'm a pretty successful Army officer guy, but I'm about to shut this thing down. So you're going into the retirement mode, right? You got a plan to get out soon. So tell us a little bit about that and how hard or how easy was it for you to make the decision to say, you know what, it's time to do something else?
I never thought about doing anything else or getting out of the Army right at the 20-year mark until my son was diagnosed and we were dealing with some medical issues that happened back in around early 2022. So when those started happening, and they were pretty dramatic at times, it was clear that leaving this child and going and pursuing things for the Army was going to be a negative to my family. And so you had to do some soul searching. You had to look at, okay, I stayed in the Army in the beginning because I didn't want to let these soldiers down. I wanted to make sure that they still had good leaders. I was going to do 4 years and get out and go, and then fast forward, there was always these opportunities to basically exit stage left, but I'd get that letter or that mentor that says, look at what you're doing, look at what you've accomplished, look at the teams you've built and where they're going. And it just got to a point after that 10-year, crescent that I was like, okay, now I'm on the downward spiral. I got kids here I got to take care of. I'm getting close to, getting that pension. But the next big thing was doing a command. That's what I was always leading up to, do a battalion command. And that opportunity presented itself. But when I had to choose between that or the health and safety and, of my child, that was a no-brainer. So that was where I made the decision that, now's the right time to get out, because without that milestone job, there was really no future to continue to move up in the Army and make the ranks and continue on in that nature. And I was like, well, if I've taken that away from me, then maybe this is just God telling me there's a new path, because nothing I've done like in my life was part of a master plan that I came up with. Right. I always had goals, but I try not to be too analytical about it. I never said I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it. I kind of had a long-term vision, but I, sometimes just let the wind take me where I need to go. None of the jobs I got were jobs that I expected to get into. And I learned so much from them that after that happened a few times, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to let the Army tell me where to go, because there's something beyond me that's putting me in places I need to be, meeting the right people, learning the right lessons. And that's really where it all came from. As far as retirement, this job I'm in now is 90% civilians and contractors. So it's kind of helping me mentally make that step while I'm still wearing a uniform. So I think that's helpful. I got 2 more years left. June 1st of 2026 will be my last day in the United States Army. Not that I'm keeping track or anything. But we're starting to think hard. 2 years seems like a long time, but it'll creep up on you. So we're starting to think about, where we want to move. We have some ideas. We're looking. But at the same time, we're not making any like solid decisions, because we've learned, my wife and I have learned through our time in the Army, that as soon as you're like, that's the decision I'm making, it's solid, the Army throws you a curveball and it's like, oh, that's not what you're doing. So we kind of like put 60% energy in like, this is, I think, what we're going to do, but we'll be okay if it changes in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. I know we have so many conversations about like what's next in the world, and, what we want to do and where is our career taking us. And when you say, I pretty much just let the wind and take my sails, and, you end up where you're going to end up. I just remember us talking about all this stuff that we wanted to do outside the Army. All these ideas, just, when we used to sit in a room when we were like roommates for a little bit, when we were on to go to the movies and just hanging out or just sitting at the restaurant, like, you know what, I can do these things too. And how we never really just tried to chase that one thing, because I think you're absolutely right. A lot of people, they put themselves in a hole, right? And when I say they put themselves in a hole, they have this path that they're like, I gotta get this thing, or if I don't get it that way, then I wasn't successful. And I like what you just said. This was an option for me, but you know what? You're navigating your own life. You're making that decision, not only for yourself, but for everybody else who's depending on Woody to do the best for the team. And in this part, the team is your family. How do you balance your role? I know you talked a little bit about it earlier, but from your mind, how have you effectively balanced your role as a military leader, an entrepreneur, and a family man?
So I hate saying the word balance, right? Because people immediately think, okay, here's the teeter-totter, right? It's balance. It's straight across the middle. In my mind, what I think balance in life is about is understanding what your priorities are, what's important to you, and always keeping an eye on that teeter-totter, right? And make sure nothing ever hits the ground. Okay, so sometimes you have more weight, on the profession side, right? And the family's being ignored. But you have to have that understanding that, you know, I'm doing this for them, but also understand, hey, there's going to be a point where that thing snaps and hits the ground, and I got to take my mind and focus on these other things. So I've learned these in the past where you can't wait. You can't wait until things get critical and then try to address them. So it's almost like you have to look and visualize, okay, what's important for me? And this is, once again, I don't get too analytical with this stuff. I don't have an Excel spreadsheet that says this many hours are dedicated to witchcraft. I look around and I say, how's things feel? You almost got to feel it out. Your gut, trust your gut. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to trust your gut of what's right, what's wrong, you know, and don't let other people influence you on what you know is right. So it's hard in the military because there's really some things you can't say no to, right? We signed a contract. If we're told to do something, that sometimes, you know, that's going to be the priority regardless of how you feel. So that can be difficult. But that's where, when I got married, you know, my wife signed up for that and understood that. And she's a blessing. And she's been through that with me. And that's understanding. Kids don't quite understand that, especially when they're young. But she makes sure to carry that message of why dad's not here, what he's doing and what he's supporting, and how all of us in the military are doing this thing to protect our country, and kind of drives that message for me. So that's, you know, thank God that I picked the right person and we were able to communicate through each other and to our kids about that. But with stuff like me on my tablet drawing, or me working on, you know, writing this book that I mentioned earlier, and doing the Patriot Bro stuff, really it's about having constant communication with my partner, which is my wife, and having constant communication with my supervisor at work, and telling them, hey, this is me. I'm not just, you know, Colonel Woodhouse. There's Colonel Woodhouse, there's Woody, there's Dad, there's, you know, Honey, right? All those things. And I have these conversations, and that's the thing, is I've had these conversations with my supervisor, my boss, my whole career, to the point like early on in the career, they were shocked that I thought that I could talk freely to them. You ever been to that leader where you're like 25 and they're 40 or 45 and you're just talking to them as a human, and they're almost shocked that you're trying to talk to them like they're better than you? I just talk to people and I'm honest and transparent, whether they like it or not. If they don't like it, that's me. But that has helped me get to the point where when I have to drop something that someone was expecting, they understand why, right? And there's a level of forgiveness that's built in because you trust each other. The hardest thing, in my opinion, is to forgive yourself, right? I can forgive my wife. I forgive other people all the time. I'm, you know, very patient, but I'm really impatient with myself, or I used to be. And that's what we got to try to do as adults, is look at ourselves and be like, look, I forgive you. I know you trying, like, it's okay. You know, I mean, it hurts you when you're like, I'm going to leave work at this time. I'm going to pick up some flowers. I'm going to make it to my kid's concert, and then I'm going to make dinner for my family. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm 5 minutes later than work than I wanted to leave. Oh, and then there's traffic, and then, oh, I'll skip this and do that. And then you're all flustered. And at the end of the day, nobody knows all those other things you had just planned. Those were all stuff you put on yourself. So you just need to make sure when you finally show up, that you can forgive yourself and then be present in the moment. Is that, you know what I'm saying?
I do, you know, oh man, because we're trying to do our best every place that we are. The work has a tendency to snatch us up and dominate everything that we're doing because we really want to do well. I can give some props real quick to Colonel retired William McKnight, right? I give him some props because I had turned in a high school stabilization memo. Rakim is trying to finish out of school. I was deploying like a champ. I was missing everything that he had going on. Then one day I told myself, I was like, man, you know what? I need to do this because I want to be there for Rakim's last year of basketball, because I've missed almost all of it, right? That was a decision. Colonel McKnight was like, hey, man, I was kind of afraid because, you know, everyone else was like, hey, I need this thing done. I need this thing done. I need this thing done before you go to the house. He was like, hey, man, you need to get up out of here. All these other jokers can do this stuff. Go see your family. once he did that, kind of shifted my perspective, because I'm like, oh man, somebody here actually is saying, Ray, go be part of your family, and this stuff can be done, and we'll pick it up tomorrow. So listening to you saying, hey, you made these plans, you got to get out of here at this time. You need to go grab some flowers. You want to cook some food. You want to be Woody. You don't want to be Lieutenant Colonel Woodhouse. You just want to be Woody. You want to be Honey. You want to be Dad. You know, Colonel McKnight gave me that perspective, because once I was getting released so early, I was like, okay, I'm going to put this job on the back burner right now, run to the house, get into my civilian clothes, show up to the game before the game start, and get a chance to watch my kid. I think that was the best thing about my career at this point, is having someone say, go be a part of your family and stop being part of the Army so much, if that makes sense. I think that's in alignment with what you're talking about. Because your occupation is just your occupation. You can get hurt and not be in this thing. Mentally, you can break down and not be in this thing. Or for all of us, one day we're just not going to be here. But all of those things that you initially talked about are the things that are going to propel and take you through the rest of your life. And you got to embrace that just as much as you embrace how you feel about your occupation. Hey, let's go to a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back and close this thing out, please.
Sounds good.
So here's what happens with the Rundown with Rubio. Every day I do these. I cover 5 different news stories. Everything happens for a reason. That's one. Number 2, there are winners and losers of life. These are the pillars of the Rubio method. Accept and embrace. You'll hear me say it all the time. Working hard is not enough, and confidence is the key. These are my morals of life, and these are also the pillars of the Rubio method.
All right. So, man, I think we had a great conversation today. And I really thank you for sharing all the thoughts that you had. But we can't get out of here without giving you the opportunity to give the folks out there who are watching some advice to help them navigate, life, the strategy of life, right? We talked about how you were addressing things, had a good conversation about, everything is not always laid out the way you think it should be laid out, and all these other external factors most definitely influence your daily decision making. So what advice would you give to people out there to help them navigate the strategy of life?
So, I've hit on several of the things, but I think in minor points. Number one, don't be overcritical on yourself. Now, when I say don't be overcritical on yourself, it doesn't mean don't set goals and don't hold yourself accountable for things. It's just understanding that you're human and be able to forgive yourself and be able to understand that nobody's perfect. Anything that you might see on a TV show or on somebody's Instagram reel, they're not going to be posting all of the angst and anxiety and the bad things. They're going to post all the happy things. So don't get caught up in the trap that that's real life. I think another thing with it when it comes to life, and a strategy that I like to do, is just make sure you're communicating with people, have conversations with people, get outdoors. This is natural to me because I think you and I have had hundreds and hundreds of conversations just like this all the time since we've known each other. So if there's folks out there that are watching this and getting something from watching people have discussions, take a chance of just having discussions with the people around you. Get back to the days where you're not distracted and you're in a moment and you can talk to people about how they're feeling, because we don't need to just listen to a podcast or watch a show to gain some wisdom. Talk to the people around you, talk to the people you care about, who you want in your life, and enjoy those moments. And I think that will help inspire you as a human to be better, right? So I'm doing a lot of stuff, but the things that I lay out to myself are tangible things. I've never been the person that's like, I want to stay busy. I'm the kind of guy that's like, I want to do work, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And we've dealt with that in the workplace, right? Someone is just hanging around and they're doing, busy stuff. But I'm like, what's the product you're actually producing and where is it going? Right. And that's what I'm all about is, set goals in your day that are tangible, that are things you want to accomplish. So you can look back at, did I do something yesterday or was it just a time ticking away? Right. Because that happens all the time. People are like, man, I'm so busy. I'm doing so much. And it's like, what is that so much you're doing? And what are the results of those tasks that you're doing? Is somebody being impacted? Are you being impacted? Or the people around you being impacted from you being busy in a positive way? Or maybe not? And start looking at that and maybe have a grading system in your mind about, what are you going to do each day? Pick one thing. We used to do that when it came to workouts, right? Every day, get out there, work out super hard. That's the hardest part of your day. And then everything else seems kind of easy. I mean, maybe twice a day we would do it at times. We got a little competitive nature in there. Yeah. But it's just, I could look back and go, well, I accomplished something. I bettered my mind. I bettered my body. I ate right, maybe 2 meals of the day, that's better in me for tomorrow. I had a conversation with an old friend. I got this done for work. But make sure that what you're doing in the day is not just an uncontrollable chaos of busyness, because I talk to so many people and I go, what'd you do today? How was your day? I don't even know what I did. And it's like, that's a problem. We're getting so caught up in distracting things and being busy and not actually like accomplishing things. And when I say, accomplishing something could be, I went for a hike. I went for a nice walk with my kids and had conversation with them, talked to them about things in nature. It's not like that's a big accomplishment as far as like we got some work done, but it's something more than a day than I just sat there and let the time pass by. And I try to just find things throughout my day that will do that for me. That's really the strategy. And I don't set that long term. Every day I try to get something out of it, make the best of it that I can, understanding that the more control I put on it, the more uncontrolled it'll be. You know what I'm saying? The more you try to control yourself and say, this is exactly how I'm going to do everything, sometimes the less satisfying and the more unhappy we get. So I try to basically just say, here's the things I'd like to accomplish today. If I get after one of them, then I pat myself on the back, right? Because at least I told myself I was going to do something. But it's to each their own. You're the kind of guy like me that's probably going to put 12 or 15 things on that plate to get after in a day. People just need to start. If they feel themselves in like a cloudy gray area, they just need to start with, let's put one thing on my plate today that I can look back at and say, that's what I did yesterday. And then slowly grow those goals. I mean, how do you go about your strategy of balancing all of your stuff? Because you're in the same boat as me.
Well, for me, things are, a lot different, right? I'm far away from everybody. I have an obligation, from a position that I'm sitting in from the workplace. But what I do, what you just said is paramount in my mind. I don't want to be busy. I want to do work. I want to be an impact person. I want to make sure that the relationships I build are lifelong, life lasting. I try to make sure that at the end of the day, that I'm like absolutely value added to the world while I'm here. So that's why I appreciate everything you said and the nuggets that you just gave everybody that's out there watching and everybody that's out there just listening. The strategy is not someone else's strategy. The strategy is your strategy, and you have to attack life the way that you want to attack life in order to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. So just as Woodhouse said today, figure out what your plan is, head down your path, deal with your external things. And if you make a decision based off of what everybody else wants you to do and it doesn't work out, you're likely going to be unhappy because it wasn't yours. So Woodhouse, thanks for coming on today. But before we get out of here, I want to give you the opportunity to share your website and share your social media accounts so people can figure out how to get a hold of Woodhouse.
Yeah, appreciate it, Ray. Really enjoyed the conversation. Hope to come back again and love what you're doing. Check out the websites, www.thepatriotbros.com. That's the nonprofit for air defense soldiers, and at Mr. Michael Woodhouse and at the Patriot Bros. And once again, thanks a lot for having me on, Ray.
No, thanks for coming on. And to everybody out there, you're watching CIME. Today we have Michael Woodhouse, and I am your host, RaShaun Warren. Everyone have a great day. We're out.
Listen.